Hi everyone and welcome to another Scratch tutorial. In this tutorial we will be going to take a look at another hidden gem in Scratch called the Animation Editor, which you can find behind the Animate button over here. So once you're in there, I recommend to scale the image a little bit smaller, move it up here, and then use the gripper here to give you some more screen real estate in the Animation Editor. Alright, so on the left you can see all the animation channels that Scratch offers currently for any given shot. And since this can be a lot, there are two filter buttons up here. So this one, Single Layers, allows you to tell Scratch, hey, I only want to see the animation channels for the layer that I currently have selected. So if I create a bunch of layers here, Scratch would only show me the animation channels for the currently selected layer. Alright. The other button here, Active Only, tells Scratch to only show animation channels that actually have an animation on them. And right now we don't have an animation, so why don't we go ahead and create one? I'll create a really simple one by going to the numeric and just create a simple animation here in the master gamma by making it noticeably dark over here. Go over here and making it noticeably bright. Alright, so now we have a very simple animation from dark to bright. Just that. Now I can go back into the animation editor, and as you can see, a whole bunch of animation channels have been added here. I can go ahead and maybe use Active Only to just find the animation channels that I want to look at and then try to frame this somehow. But there's a much easier way. So let me disable all that, close the animation editor. What you can do instead is just drag the Animate button over to the parameter that you want to work on. Once the crosshair turns green, just let go and boom. Scratch opens up the animation editor, selects the channel you want to work on and frames it nicely here. Now you can still go ahead and frame it by holding down Alt and dragging up and down and left and right, and hold spacebar to pan around. Alright, and then you can of course change the animation by using the handles here or move the actual keyframes around in X and Y. If you hold down Y, you're locked to the X-axis, and if you hold down X, you lock the Y-axis and just move vertically. Alright, that being said, you can of course add keyframes by selecting Add here and add keyframes in here. Go back to Edit and then move those around. But what I want to draw your attention to is a couple of really cool features in Scratch's animation editor which make it particularly awesome. So let's start with the global mode over here. I select that and I get these two bars, and I can use those to shift the animation either in amplitude or in time. So if I want this animation to start a little bit later in the shot, let me zoom out a little bit here, then I can just move all the animation over here. As you can see, the change is also reflected up here on the mini timeline where we can see the keyframes, just like that. And if I grab the end handles of these two bars, I can also stretch the animation in time and of course also in value. So this is a really cool way to deal with animations globally, hence the name Global Mode. The other thing I want to show you is the start and end extrapolation. So if we go here to our last keyframe, let me zoom in a little bit, and we change the handle or change the keyframe. As you can see, the outgoing animation stays what it is. It stays constant, straight line here, right? Now, if I set the extrapolation to linear, well, the outgoing animation will be extrapolated in the way we set this keyframe, right? So if I do this, the shot will go darker and darker until there's almost nothing to see anymore. Or it can continue to go brighter, and so on. Okay, so there's two more modes. I can set this to loop, and as you can see, now we're looping the animation. So we start here, dark, going bright, and we jump back to dark, go bright again, jump back to dark, go bright again, and so on. Alternatively, we can set this to bounce. And now we have this up and down motion here. Very cool. And of course, we can still change all that with the keyframes here. So if I change the keyframe of my original animation, also the whole extrapolation is changed. Okay? And of course, we can then also apply that to the beginning of the shot, going backwards. So if I set the start extrapolation to bounce, I have the same thing. Right? And using global mode, we can of course shift the animation as we want or stretch it. Very cool. Now, let's look at the filters tab here. And for that, we actually should create a little bit more of a complex animation. So let's reset our whole shot here. Go back to the beginning, go to framing, go to stabilize, and let's do a quick and dirty stabilize. Put my two tracker boxes somewhere up here in the tree. This way they hopefully won't get affected by the clap. Let's track a little bit. Yep, there we go. This is enough for now. Apply stabilize. And now we have a somewhat well stabilized image here. Okay, so let's drag the animate button to the X offset, and next to that also display the Y offset. So now we have both animation channels displayed here, and we can apply our filters. So what you want to do, especially when you have stabilized a shot, in many cases, is to smoothen the actual stabilize. So to do that, just select the smoothen filter here, and now crank up the factor. And as you can see, the higher I crank it up, the more smooth my animation becomes. Something like this maybe. So this is fairly smooth. And what I might want to do next, because I might intend to keep on working on this curve, and right now, as you can see, we have a whole bunch of keyframes to deal with, one for each frame. We can choose the reduce filter to reduce keyframes and hence simplify the curve. So let's do that. Crank that one up. As you can see, it's getting less and less crowded here in our animation editor. And at some point, of course, the curve will get so simplified that it actually is far too simple and does not really reflect the original curve anymore. So let's go back a little bit. Yeah, something like this. That looks good. Alright, and now we have a lot less keyframes to deal with and can work much faster. Let's undo 2 times here and look at what else we have. We have high pass and low pass filters. What do they do? Let's choose high pass first. Imagine you have a camera movement, an intended move like a pan from left to right, but you also have a lot of jitter in your movement. And what you want to do is keep the overall movement, the pan, but get rid of the jitter. And now you track that, and this filter helps you filter out just the jitter. Or basically actually the opposite. The high pass filter passes high frequency, that's why it has that name. So the jitter animation or counter animation, which we created in our stabilize, will be kept, while the overall, the bigger movement, lower frequencies, will be faded out. And this is what you see here. So right now, we are only stabilizing the jitter and not the overall camera movement. Let's undo that. And the low pass filter actually does the exact opposite. It removes the high frequency keyframes, but keeps the overall movement of the camera. So right now, we are filtering out the pan, but keep the jitter. Okay, what else? We have 2 filters left. Let's look at level. Level is a bit harder to explain. Let me disable the white channel here for a second. What I use level for is, for instance, when we look at this animation channel, we have quite a big bump down here, and we want to bring that more into the ballpark of the rest of the animation. So to do that, I hold down Control and I select all the keyframes in this area, like such. and now I level them. And this works much better than offsetting them or something. And now I have created a much nicer transition between this part of the curve and this part of the curve without the big bump in it. Okay, and this leaves the noise filter. Well, for noise, actually, let's go back, reset all of our framing, and now create a very, very simple animation just by putting a keyframe here on the X offset, putting another keyframe here, nothing too big. Okay, so there's not much going on. It's almost a straight line. Go over here and here's our animation. Now what we can do is use the noise filter and create noise in our animation channel. So you can see there are a whole bunch of keyframes created and they start to wiggle like crazy. Okay, so we did this, and now when we play the shot, as you can see, this adds some form of camera wiggle. And in an ideal world, you would not only apply this to the X offset, but also to the Y offset. We can actually quickly do that. Go in here, copy this, select the Y channel, paste it, and now we have our camera wiggle also on the Y channel. Well, maybe a little bit extreme, but you get the idea. Another application for this is grading. So again, let's go in here and create a quick animation here in the gamma, and here, almost not noticeable. Again, let's go to the filters and create a lot of noise in here. Something like this. Okay, let's bring this a bit more into perspective. All right, and what we created now is simply a flicker effect. Pretty cool. And to top it all off, let's bounce all this. And now the flicker continues for the rest of the shot. Okay, that's it for the animation editor in Scratch and why it is so awesome. Hope this was useful to you, and see you next time. Bye.